Hello, my name is Mariah and this is my channel, Call It Our Creations. And this is another episode on a series that I am starting called Vulnerability Diaries. So my intention with this series is to come on here each week and to try to be vulnerable, to share past experiences that have been really impactful in my life and to distill lessons that I've learned from them, and through it to learn more about myself through the process and hopefully to support other people that have gone through similar things or could find the lessons that I've learned to be useful in some way. And this week is a big one for me, honestly. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a while now, even before I've started making YouTube videos. I've really wanted to sit down and make a video talking about my experience with alopecia areata. Okay, before we dive into it, let's light an incense. I have some dragon's blood. Let's get cozy and chat. All right, let's dive in. So I've experienced alopecia areata for about 6 or so years now. And wow, there's literally so much I feel like I could say on this topic. I'm not even quite sure where to start, but I guess it makes sense to start with some context. What is alopecia areata? So alopecia areata is an autoimmune condition where basically you lose hair in patches. I guess I'll backstep a little bit. First of all, there's so many different autoimmune conditions, but basically what an autoimmune condition is when the body is attacking itself as if it's a foreign invader. So in eczema, people get like patches because the body's attacking the skin. And for me, alopecia areata, it attacks the hair follicles. And there's different types of alopecia. Some people have universalitis where they lose all of their hair, like their eyebrows, their body, everything. But for me, I have experienced alopecia areata, which is more so just like patchy hair loss on your head. And the severity of it varies from person to person. So I just turned 27 and I was first diagnosed with alopecia areata back when I was 20. Yeah, so I guess let's just throw it back to when it all happened. So I was 20 years old and I had a full head of hair, really thick hair, thick long hair. Never had hair loss issues. And then one day I was just sitting on the couch, scratching my head, and I felt something. I felt like a little bald spot is what it felt like on the back of my head, like right about the top of the crown. And I was just kept feeling it. I was so confused because, like I said, I never experienced hair loss before. So I asked my boyfriend at the time, who's now an ex, I asked him if he could look at the top of my head because I told him, I was like I feel a bald spot, but that doesn't make sense. And then he looked at my head and he looked at me and he like had this like flushed look on his face, or perhaps I projected that onto him, but I don't know. He did seem to be like expressing a little bit of concern, and I like looked at him and we kind of locked eyes and he was like, yeah, that's a bald spot. And then in that moment, like I can't even fully put into words how that moment felt. I've had a handful of moments in my life that were just so pivotal that like, it's so weird. Like it genuinely feels like a massive shock to my system. And just like in that moment, I knew everything in my life was about to change. Like something in me knew that something big was about to unfold. It was like this feeling coupled with also concern, fear, anxiety, all these things. But I just felt flushed, like my stomach dropped and like my vision got weird and I just like froze almost. And I was in shock. Honestly, I felt like I was in shock, which, you know, some people might feel a bald spot and not be like, okay, it's just a bald spot. But like, I don't know. I feel like something in my gut knew something big was about to unfold. So I got really anxious, honestly. I got really anxious about it. So the next day I ended up going to an urgent care center, which in retrospect, like it wasn't an urgent situation, but I didn't want to wait for a doctor's appointment and I felt anxious and I wanted some answers. So I went into urgent care. They checked my vitals, checked everything, and they were like, you're all good. It looks like it's probably alopecia areata. And in that moment, like I didn't know what that was. I never heard of it. Yeah, so he told me that, recommended that I go see a skin doctor. And then I went home and started deep dive researching so much. I used to have a bit of an anxious habit of doing that. I'm sure other people can relate, where you just start excessively researching every little detail of a new diagnosis, which in a way, of course, it's good to have understanding and to learn about it, but also there was like a deep anxiety behind it and just like really wanting answers and just freaked out and scared. So I started researching a lot about it, made an appointment for a dermatologist. The more I did research, the more I felt scared, realizing what alopecia areata entailed. And I went to the dermatologist and they didn't even do any like actual testing. They just looked at it and they were like, that's alopecia areata. It's like easily recognizable. That was that. I was diagnosed with it. And honestly, that triggered an intense feeling of anxiety within me that was just persistent. And I was scared. I was really scared. Guys might get me a little emotional on here today. I'm like right in my like PMS phase of my cycle. So I'm like more emotional, which honestly feels like a good space to be in, to really drop into such a sensitive subject. Because I want to show up fully and feel what I'm sharing. It feels so weird having a light on me and like being on the camera, but I get used to it. I was really fucking scared. I was really scared, and it happened really, really fast. I started losing hair so quick, like globs and globs of it. Every time I'd take a shower, it would just be handfuls and handfuls, and I'd be crying, and like I brushed my hair and it was just coming out. It was coming out so quick. Huge patches of bald spots started to appear. And yeah, I was just so scared and frustrated, and I felt trapped and confused, and so many emotions were triggered throughout this experience. Yeah. Feels good in a way to talk about it. Obviously, I haven't given you the full details to see where I am now. We'll get there. I'm just gonna start from the beginning. Feels good to recollect this and to feel this, to express it. But yeah, I was so scared. I love that version of me. Like, as I'm talking about it, I'm like thinking about that version of me. I mean, like, that chapter of my life was so hard. It was so hard. And I can't deny it. A big thing I struggled with experiencing the hair loss was, amongst so many things, was that I really got upset with myself for being sad over such a vanity type situation, like my hair. It's like I wouldn't allow myself to fully grieve the weight of the situation. It's like I would start feeling the sadness and all the feelings, but then I would tell myself, it's just hair. Like, suck it up, it's just hair. And I just had like a vicious cycle of that, along with other thoughts that were brought to the surface. I know we'll get to the lessons later. Honestly, I'll say this now before I dive in anymore. Alopecia areata, like, I say this so truly, so truly. Alopecia areata is my greatest fucking teacher. Is truly my greatest teacher. Like, I can't even express it enough. Like, I wouldn't be the woman I am today without having experienced that. Like, truly, truly. What's really interesting to me is that right before I started losing hair, I started opening up more spiritually. I started to like really question things and really expand my view on things. I started working with mushrooms. I started diving in and like really surfacing a bunch of stuff, honestly, and seeing myself from so many different angles that I'd never looked at myself before. I remember I had many moments where I was calling in a teacher. I really was like, I am ready. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to evolve. I love a teacher to support me through that, to really help me open up and expand. And shortly after I experienced alopecia areata, I truly do believe it is one of my greatest teachers. And it's like, some people might not look at it that way. It might be like, what? Why? But I really learned that, you know, teachers don't always come in like, you know, a man in a monk suit teaching you directly. I believe everything is a teacher. And a lot of times, our most impactful teachers are the ones that break us down to our core, that turn us inside out. And through all the intensity and muck, we're presented with opportunities to really get to see ourselves more clearly. Okay, so we'll get to more of that later. but let's go back to the story, the timeline. Also, side note, I want to say about 6 months or so before I started experiencing the hair loss, I also started experiencing severe acne. My face just constantly felt like swollen and inflamed, and it was bright red. I just had acne everywhere, and I was honestly struggling with that already. And then fast forward, now my hair was also falling out, and I just had patches and globs coming out when I would shower, or when I would like brush my hair or run my fingers through my hair. I'd pull my hand out and just see so much hair. And this was fucking hard. This was fucking hard. I was really deep in the trenches during this phase. I felt so sad and so insecure. And I remember looking myself in the mirror with full face of acne and just so many bald patches, and I felt like I didn't even recognize myself. And I really started to feel like I hated the reflection that I witnessed in the mirror. I really just did not feel comfortable in my skin. I didn't feel confident. Just wanted so badly to just like fix it all. I was like, I'm willing to do anything. But then I just felt very trapped and confused about what was going on and how to help it. Okay, another side note, I didn't explain in the beginning that alopecia areata is an autoimmune condition in which there's really no direct cure, which I'll get into more later on about my perspective of what autoimmune diseases are manifestations of like something much deeper. I have a lot of theories on it and a lot of stuff that I feel like I've worked through within myself. There's been a lot that I've worked through, and I feel like my hair is a testament to that. Like just in general, there's no pill you can take to make it go away. I will say there are a few options. You can take like a pill that suppresses your immune system, which could suppress the immune response and help the autoimmune condition go away, but it also has its caveats where it suppresses the immune system, meaning it interferes with your immune system, which you could get sick more easily, and so many things that did not feel worth it for me. And then there also was steroid injections in your head. And honestly, at that time frame, I was living a very natural life, and I was personally not into taking any pharmaceutical drugs or doing anything like that. But I will say, I did get to a point where I felt really desperate, and I was really going through it. And I really do believe desperation, no matter who we are or what the circumstance is, desperation, when we're in those spaces and when we lead from the mentality of desperation, we're more willing to do things that cross our boundaries. We step out of integrity with what feels true and important for us to honor. With that, I did end up getting some steroid shots, and I didn't do it for long. I did it maybe twice, and they didn't really help. And doing those shots just felt really out of alignment with my own values. Let's take a step back again. So my hair was falling out at rapid rates, and I was starting to feel more and more depressed, and pretty much it got to the point where I had such minimal amount of hair, it just felt pointless to keep my hair. I knew it was time for me to shave my head, something I never thought I would do. And side note again, I take a lot of side steps. I find it so beautiful when women shave their head. I really do. I think it's so beautiful to see a woman with a shaved head and just to see her face. Incredibly beautiful, empowering thing. And I have admired that. But I didn't really have a desire to do that personally. And I feel like there is a little bit of a different configuration for my circumstance where there was a choice involved and I chose to do that, but I didn't choose to do it from having a full head of hair. I felt like I just had no hair left, and it was just time. So it was a day after my 21st birthday. I went and got my head shaved, and that was wild. That was really, really wild. And I chose to not dive into wearing wigs right away. I will say I did end up wearing wigs a bit in the future, but the way I am is that I just really try to push my edges, to be vulnerable, to get uncomfortable, and to really trust that I will grow from that. And I've just had this mentality for a long, long time, and even back then. So despite this really big change where my head was shaved, which I will say it's a bit different than a regular shaved head. First of all, the hairdresser did not shave it completely. She's left it still kind of like this long, which I feel like wasn't the best idea. So it wasn't just like a flat shaved head. It was now this long with patches. You could tell that my hair was falling out. Like it wasn't just like a smooth clean shaved head. It's just out there now, like no hiding it. And yeah, so I was like, all right, I'm not gonna wear a wig. This is gonna feel uncomfortable, but I'm gonna fucking do it. I worked at a restaurant and I showed up to work just bald head, and I could feel people like, whoa. I'd wait on tables and it's just like I could feel people's like curiosity and questioning, is she okay? You know, one thing would be hard for me going through my head sometimes is like, I don't want people to think that I have cancer. Of course, not hating on anybody with cancer, absolutely not. I feel concerned that people would think that I was really sick and treat me differently, because obviously it is an autoimmune condition, it's some sort of condition, but it's way different than cancer. I don't know, that was just definitely something that would come up for me, and I've talked to other people who have experienced alopecia areata and that was big for them too. But yeah, I put myself out there and I could feel people's curiosity, and I also could feel all the trigger points that were hit within me as I would approach people with this patchy bald head, and I just used it as grist for the mill, as Ram Dass says, meaning like using it as to fuel the mill, like grist, to learn about myself through the process, to really face the insecurities that came up through that. And I will say, there was one part of me that was like feeling deep in depression and feeling anxious and sad and trapped and all these things. And there still was another part of me that was optimistic and that was like, we're gonna use this to grow. We're gonna learn. We got this, baby. And then there was, of course, a part of me that was just like, stop fucking crying. Like, it's not that big of a deal. There's all these parts of me that I got to explore through this. So yeah, I went to work that way. I was in college. I just show up in college, my glasses. Hello, this is me. So then I ended up rocking a bald head for about like 3 years maybe. And I eventually did, I think I waited like 6 months or so. I don't know exactly how long, but I waited a bit to start wearing wigs, and then I would occasionally put them on. I wouldn't wear them all the time because wigs felt so uncomfortable. And they also just felt like they went out of integrity with what felt important to me. And I just felt like I was hiding. And I'm not saying that wigs are bad, not good, they're not bad. It's how you use them. And I don't care if people wear them, whatever. I wore them for so long. It just felt like whenever I put a wig on, I was hiding, and I didn't like that feeling. And I also just felt like hot and tight and itchy on my head, and it felt really uncomfortable. And I felt like if I wasn't wearing a wig, I felt insecure about people looking at my patchy head. Or if I was wearing a wig, I felt insecure that people knew that I was wearing a wig. So I rocked a bald head for like 3 years and wore wigs here and there. I wore a lot of different wigs, honestly. I tried out so many different hair colors, which could be fun. And wigs were fun. Ultimately, I just really liked not wearing them. And I just dreamed of a day when I could just exist without a wig, with a full head of hair. And it felt like that version of me in the past that had a full head of hair just felt like it kept getting more and more distant. Yeah, as I said, there was a part of me that was just so optimistic and that was so devoted to making that happen, to making my hair grow back, to trusting that that is a potential. Like, I did it before, so why could I not do it now? Like, actually, I once had a full head of hair, so I know it's possible. So through that part of me that felt really devoted, I dove in even more, and I started to really look at my life from so many different angles. I started diving into my nutrition. Before I experienced alopecia areata, I started having symptoms of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which honestly is a precursor for a lot of autoimmune conditions where your gut just gets so wonky that you have bowel issues. And I was going to the bathroom so much, and clearly my gut was just out of whack. So I was like, I need to focus on my nutrition and really recognize like what's supportive for my body, what's not supportive. Through that journey, I ended up working with a nutritional therapist, and it wasn't just one-sided where it was purely physical. Like, she would connect therapeutic, emotional elements and body work and all of this stuff into our sessions and help me with my nutrition and learning about my body and my gut and supplementing and all of that. And really through that, I was able to rebalance my gut so much more and really learn what my body likes, what it doesn't like, what are trigger points. And then also at the same time, I started seeing a therapist, like a regular talk therapist, once a week. I still see him, same therapist. I love him so much. He has truly been such a huge support in my life. I started diving in from the nutrition angle, and then from like the emotional inner work angle, and just from every angle. And there's so much more I have to say on this topic. I mean, I haven't even gotten to where I am today with hair. There's so many lessons that I do want to distill on this topic, but as I'm talking, I'm realizing this video is already so long, and yeah, I don't want to rush this. I want to really take my time talking about this. So I decided I'm going to make multiple parts to this within the Vulnerability Diary series, and I guess this first part is just me kind of laying out a bit of the storyline, and then the next part I'm gonna continue on the storyline and really dive into some of the lessons that I've learned through this whole journey. Yeah, let's just keep talking about it. I have a bunch of theories on what I feel like autoimmune conditions are, on more of like an energetic level. Yeah, I just have so much more to share on this. And I don't want to try to jam it all into one video. And I also need to eat dinner. As always, I want to remind you how precious your energy is. Like, sincerely, your energy, your focus, your attention is so precious, so valuable. And I'm so grateful that you've taken the time to direct your precious energy onto witnessing me here on these videos, opening my heart and sharing and expressing. It really does mean a lot to me. I won't take it for granted. So thank you. Thank you for sharing with me. And I hope you have such a beautiful day, night, life, all of it. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.